Well, hey guys, today we are taking a look at water treatment options for the trail and backcountry. We'll talk about the various methods and touch on a few specific products as we figure out which systems work best in which scenarios. Now, this particular topic is very dear to my heart. You see, I'm not well endowed in the melanin department.
Why you look like that?
Yeah, it's sort of like that. After spending a couple of decades hiking in and out of the Grand Canyon and around the Colorado Plateau, well, I've learned my limits, and when it comes to water, my limits are generally low. I sweat like a pig and I drink like a fish. Water is your most important and delicate resource in the woods. You can go up to 2 weeks without food, you can go days without shelter, but you can't get very far without water. It's critical to know where reliable water sources might be on the trail and plan your trip around access to water. Of course, it won't do you a lot of good if you come crawling and panting to your water hole only to find something like this. Yeah, you're gonna want to treat that first. In fact, you'll want to treat pretty much any water source you encounter on the trail, no matter how clean and clear it looks. Why? Well, because I don't like crying and sweating when I'm squatting over a cat hole, but more specifically, bacteria, protozoa, and viruses. Nasty little suckers. Now, if you're traveling in North America and most of the developed world, you generally really only need to worry about the first two, unless there's a dead deer in your water source. Then I'd worry about lots of things. If you're traveling in the developing world though, you might want to get something that handles viruses as well. Now there's other stuff to worry about also. There's chemicals, fertilizers, heavy metals, and other contaminants, but unless you're gathering water below this, or in certain Michigan municipalities, it's really the gut-wrenching bacteria that should concern you most. Lead poisoning takes a really long time, but dysentery can kill you in a couple of days if you don't have a clean water source to flush it out. Now, speaking of said expelling, the human body really only has 2 ways to get rid of foreign bodies that it finds objectionable in the GI tract. I, for one, don't enjoy either, but the prescient fact here is that the additional water required to flush out the infection could put you in a bad spot, especially if water is scarce to start with. The only exception I ever make to the always treat rule is that occasionally, when I'm at this source of a spring and I can see it flowing free and clear, I sometimes drink without treatment. I mean, it's just so clean and pure, I can't help myself. Drinking straight from a mountain spring is like kissing a stranger's baby without asking. You know nothing good can come from it, but they're just so damn cute and pure. You can't help yourself. All right, enough doom and gloom. Let's get into the types of treatment and when and how to use them effectively. There's really 2 broad categories of water treatment when it comes to the trail. You have filtration and purification. Filtration comes in the form of a pump or a gravity system, and those little squeeze pumps seem to be gaining a lot of popularity lately. Essentially, filtration means forcing the water through a filter, leaving the junk behind. Just like your fridge filter, but better. Probably. Purification can come in a whole variety of modes. You can purify with chemicals, like those little chlorine tablets or iodine, but you can also accomplish this with a UV or SteriPEN. You can even go old school and just boil your water. What all these purification methods have in common is that they kill the bacteria or viruses and protozoa if used effectively. Now, both filtration and purification have their benefits and drawbacks, so let's get into a bit more detail on when and why you might choose one over the other and when you might want to combine them. All right, let's talk about filters. My favorite method of keeping the critters at bay is filtration. I've carried a water pump for, well, forever. Filters not only remove the stuff that can make you sick, they also do a great job of removing all the nasty junk that won't kill you but might make your drinking water look and taste pretty nasty. They also do a decent job of pulling out chemicals and bad taste, which you won't get from any of the purification techniques. Filters can also make water more accessible. With a pump filter, you can pull water out of any little puddle you find along the trail. I travel in the Southwest mostly, and water can be pretty scarce here. A lot of times the only water source that I've had access to was, well, a mud hole. A water pump can be amazingly versatile at getting good water from a very hard to access source. The other advantage of filtration is volume. You can move as much water through the filter as physics allow. There are some really good base camp filters that employ large sacks that you can just scoop up water and lash it around a tree and rely on gravity to do the pumping for you. Katadyn makes one that I've used many times, and on group trips it always seemed to work well and fast. You'll need to ensure that you'll have a large pool of water so that you can dip the entire bag into. It's not going to work very well trying to get water out of a pothole with this giant garbage bag sized filtration system. Now, in the last few years, there's been an explosion of mini pumps, straws, and inline filters. I recently picked up this Katadyn Be-Free and HydroPack Seeker as a backup after my First Need XL crapped out on us in a pretty desperate situation. The advantage of these is their compactness, but the trade-off is likely going to be volume and lifespan. The filters tend to be smaller, so they're probably going to clog up faster, and you just can't force as much water through them, so they're really best suited for occasional use, solo trips, or as backup. Now, there are some drawbacks to filtration. First, they have a limited lifespan. All that junk that you're filtering out gets stuck in the membrane, so every time you use them, they're gonna be a little slower. The more turbid or cloudy the water, the faster they'll clog up and shorten that lifespan. They do have a limited life, which you can extend by backwashing. Backwashing is the process of using clean water forced through the outlet port to shoot some of the junk back out of the inlet. Backwashing can really only be done with pump filters, and you have to have some clean water to start with, so it's really a band-aid. That said, some of these filters have amazingly long lifespans. 2,000 liters under ideal conditions isn't unheard of. Filters also do a poor job of removing viruses. They're just too small to be filtered out by most mediums. There are a few exceptions, like this First Need XL filter that I used to use, or the amazingly expensive MSR Guardian, but those are the exceptions. In the US, this really isn't going to be a problem, but if you're going into a third world country or you're pumping water out of Kevin Costner's watering hole, you might want to add a purification method on top of filtration, or at least make sure that your filter takes care of viruses. The other disadvantage that every serious backpacker watching this is probably screaming about is size and weight. Filters, and pumps especially, are pretty big. They take up a decent amount of room compared to, say, a SteriPEN or chlorine tablets, and they generally weigh in about a pound, and they require some maintenance. All right, so let's turn to purification. If you're really looking to keep your weight low and bulk to a minimum, then maybe purification is a good option for you. Purification doesn't actually make the water pure, it just kills the stuff that could make you sick. I'm not sure why they don't call it sterilization. Now, if you're new to the channel, you'll see soon enough that I don't really know much beyond the first page of Google about anything, so yeah. Before you purify, you'll need to have relatively clean water. If you're starting with a mountain spring or stream, you might not have to worry about this, but if your water is cloudy or silty, you'll need to pre-filter it somehow for the purification to be effective, and so you don't have to drink this. Your UV pen or tablets might kill the viruses in there, but they won't do a thing about that whole pure Michigan tap water aesthetic that's going on there. Sorry, Michigan, I realize I'm dinging you a couple times here, but you've had a lot of issues lately with tap water. It's still gonna look like that when you drink it, not to mention making the chlorine or UV treatment less effective. If you know the water is going to be turbid, you need to pre-filter somehow. Once you do have clean, clear, and aesthetically pleasing water, there are a few ways to purify it. Let's start with the oldest method of purification, which is boiling. Boiling water is extremely effective at deactivating viruses, bacteria, and protozoa. You already need a pot or a little cup to boil water in anyway, so there you go, ultralight. The problem with boiling water is that it's slow. You've got to drag out your stove and boil whatever volume of water your pot will hold and then let it cool. And finally, you get to drink about a quart of water. Now, that might work at camp in winter, but it's certainly not going to keep you topped off in the Grand Canyon in August. If your water has any chemicals like fertilizers or pesticides, boiling's only gonna make it worse. You'll just boil off some of the water, increasing the concentration of whatever was in the water to start with. When you factor in the additional fuel that you'd need and the time involved, boiling water really doesn't make any sense in this particular application. Water treatment tablets are a great option if you're looking to go ultralight. I mean, they're tiny. You still need a container of some sort, but you're gonna need a container to store water and drink it anyway. I always carry these aqua tabs as a backup in my first aid kit. That way, if my pump falls apart on the trail, I at least have a hope and a prayer. They're really easy to use. You just drop them in the water and wait 30 minutes. These things are effective against viruses, bacteria, and protozoa. You can treat a little bit of water or a lot. You can even use them as a secondary method to kill viruses if you're using a filter that isn't effective against viruses, but you happen to find this in your water. I'm just trying to see how many times I can get that clip in this video. The only drawback is that some of them leave a chemical taste. If you use a bit too much or you don't follow the instructions just right, you might end up having a bunch of water that tastes like a Band-Aid. The taste issues, the extra time you need for the water to be treated by the chemicals, and the need to bring additional filters has always kept me from really using these as a primary source. They could be great for going super light or as a backup option, or if you're going into an area that you know has clean and clear flowing streams. Now, last but not least in the purification category are UV-based water treatment methods. I started seeing these guys in the outdoor shops about a decade ago. Essentially, they are very similar to chemicals in that they're relatively light and compact, and you can treat a large amount of water with them. Just like chemical methods, they don't work in cloudy water though, so you need to have a clean and clear water source or a pre-filter to get started. They treat the same stuff as chemicals, that is viruses, bacteria, and protozoa, but they do it in a different way. They don't actually kill those little suckers. The UV light penetrates the single-celled organisms and snips their DNA into bits, so they can't reproduce inside of you. Wikipedia calls them neutered microbes. I wonder if they have those little cones on their heads after you neuter them. Sorry, that was stupid. All you need to do to use these guys is scoop up your clean, clear mountain spring water into a Nalgene, pop your SteriPEN in there, and swirl it around for 1.5 minutes. Now, that's not as fast as some methods, but it's a lot faster than dichlor tablets, though it's quite a bit bigger too. That about covers it. You got two main camps, filtration and purification. Purification techniques tend to be lighter and leaner, but they are also most effective when you know you'll have a reliably clean and clear water source to start with. Filtration is bigger and bulkier, but it gives you speed, volume, and utility. I generally opt for filtration as my primary method and carry a backup like a second mini filter or tablets as a secondary. In the comments below, I'll drop links to everything we talked about in this video, links to related videos, and maybe some snarky replies to people pointing out all the stuff I got wrong in this video. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share to help me create more videos like this one. We'll see you out there.